Many blessings to you, my friend. This is VerDarLuz from Divine Timing Life and Business Coaching. So excited to share with you today. Oh, there's so much happening in the skies. This video is going to be a deep dive into the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Once every 14 years, this happens. So very rare. And we're going to break down a lot of the cultural history around this transit throughout the last century. You're going to learn about how it's affected us in music and the arts and in politics. So lots of specific examples for that, and we'll play that into your own chart as we look at some personal charts through the different rising signs, different sun signs. We're also going to look at the full moon in Scorpio. So we can't take the Jupiter-Uranus out of context with what's happening next week, the full moon in Scorpio. We also can't take it out of context with what's just happened, which has been quite revolutionary for a lot of us, which is, of course, the lunar and solar eclipses, Aries and Libra, that just happened. And we are still in that portal really big time, especially because Mercury and Venus are coming right now to the eclipse points. So it's reactivating the eclipse that just happened, the solar eclipse. So we are really still in the portal here of transformation, of evolution, of growth, of shedding. And this full moon in Scorpio square to Pluto is going to amplify a lot of this energy for us. So a lot to prepare for as this weekend and the next week unfolds. Okay, my name is VerDarLuz, Divine Timing, Life and Business Coaching. I focus a lot on locational astrology, power places for clients, family and relationship astrology, as well as business coaching using astrology and human design. So if you need any support in those realms or trying to get this through this eclipse season and Jupiter-Uranus energy, I'd love to do a reading for you and some coaching. So let's connect. I'm also going to share with you today from Zodiac Shadow Play, which is, see if that video picks it up. This is my journal that I put out this year, and it's about the archetype of Scorpio, and it's a shadow work prompt-based journal. And so I'm going to give you a couple prompts there today for the Scorpio full moon. And it's a great shadow work journal for anyone, but it's focused more on the archetype of Scorpio and some of the deeper themes around, control, power, transformation, shamanism. So these are some of the themes we'll talk about today. So I'm going to share the screen and we're going to just walk through what's just happened, what's coming up, and how you're going to be affected by it. So right here I have the transits for today, and this is a significant day, April 20th when I'm recording this. It's 420. It has a lot of meanings. It's Earth Day. Of course, it's a day where a lot of us like to smoke and celebrate that way, but it's also, which is an extension of the earth and all the bounty that she gives to us. But it's also the day that the sun is moving into Taurus. And so we're coming into the vibration of the earth really strong today, the fixed earth, the feminine yin energy of earth that is so giving and abundant. All of the material and sensual delights of Taurus, the dance, the embodiment, the movement, the music, the garden. But before we jump into, the beauty of Taurus, we have to get ready for this Jupiter-Uranus energy, which is right here. Here's Jupiter and Uranus, and it's exact today, really all weekend. And this has been building up for us. So let's go back. You're going to see the calendar here. So the day is here, and then you're going to see this move. And I want to take us back to the eclipse that happened on April 8th. Jupiter and Uranus were pretty close then. They were 3 degrees away from each other. And if you just kind of remember that Chiron was a big part of that eclipse. And Chiron is very significant. So if we look at what's unfolding for us, there's a great narrative taking place that we have to look at. And the first thing is to understand that, during the eclipse and over the last, 2 weeks, really, we've had a very strong relationship between Mercury, retrograde, and Chiron and the North Node. And not a lot of astrologers are talking about this, but I think it's one of the most important things for us to consider with the Jupiter-Uranus energy, with the full moon coming into Scorpio, because this is a triple pass that Mercury is making. So when Mercury comes to Chiron, we're all getting a message of deep healing that needs to take place within us, within our relationships to others, because it's an Aries. And Aries, yes, is the relationship to self, but self can't be in relationship only to itself. It's always in relationship to others. And that's what this eclipse window between Libra and Aries has really brought up for a lot of us, that our own ability to be leaders, to be entrepreneurs, to be pioneers, to be catalysts for the world, Aries, is really dependent on the kinds of and the qualities of relationships that we have in our life. That theme came up really strong with our full moon at 5 degrees of Libra in the third week of March. And so we're in this dancing dynamic, this play between the Aries Libra nodes, right? How can I be most supportive to others, but in return, really come into my excellence, my leadership, really my upgrade of all the gifts that I have to bring to this world? Well, Mercury in Aries is asking us to take risks, to dare to be ourselves, to go on the adventure that maybe, is going to be challenging for us, but it will be rewarding. Through that process, we might have to learn by doing. And some of the times what happens when you see Mercury and Chiron, look, this is the last week here, 16, 17, 18, 19, and here's today, 20. Now Mercury is super close to the North Node. And so we're looking at very important collective messages that are happening right now. The information that's circulating collectively is, there's themes of healing or wounding, both, of mentorship, of guidance, of coaching. This is all Chiron. That is all evolutionary for our collective soul growth, the North Node. Right? And again, Mercury just crossed the eclipse point, so it brought these themes back up. And now Venus is also this weekend coming to the eclipse point. And so here she is on the 21st at 19. Now, hopefully that will bring some kind of more peace, more relational harmony, more of a sense of balance, and maybe just like overall acceptance of sort of the changes that have been happening, especially relationally. We tend to like a Mercury-Venus conjunction because it's like we can communicate about our values really well with that. We might do something more adventurous or fun with partners or with friends during this weekend. It should have a kind of breakthrough experience with Jupiter-Uranus involved, but it also should be about healing. Now, anytime Venus and Chiron come together, there can be a wound around relationships, around money and values, even our aesthetics or our creativity. We can look at like, maybe I'm not expressing myself fully or with the right people to get this creative work out into the world. Or maybe my social life, I need new people around me, or I need to have different conversations that I'm having, and conversations that are about, healing relationships, a new way to relate with each other. I know I'm in a lot of coaching circles right now, referral networks, joint venture partnerships, and this could be great groups for us to align and ally ourselves with during this weekend and these cycles we're speaking of, because there's an evolutionary quality with Aries all the time. It's the first sign of the Zodiac. And because we're, Mercury, Venus, and Chiron with the North Node, the people around us can signify a growth edge for us, or sort of destiny encounters. And so I really want to tune into this as a very important transit that Mercury, before Mercury goes direct, which is going to be on the 25th here, okay, watch 15 degrees, he goes right on the North Node, see, and then he'll go back to 16. And then if we move it forward, we're going to see Mercury move right back over that eclipse point, which is going to happen right here on May 5th. And I think this is going to be really significant. That first few days of May, first week, Mars will be in his home sign of Aries. Venus will be in her home sign of Taurus. It's going to be a very different landscape, uh, a couple weeks out when we hit that new moon energy in Taurus coming in, which is actually going to be up here right around the 8th. Okay, so in the next 2 weeks, got to be a lot of shifts, but and we'll be coming out of the Jupiter-Uranus exact, but it's going to be in effect really strong for us. So let's just finish this theme of Mercury on the North Node, important messages this whole month long, a lot to reflect on. What risks are we taking? Are we saying things in a way that's too forceful or aggressive, competitive, versus, are we willing to take risks and go into new territory with our minds, with our self-awareness? Aries is all about that, and being sort of competitive with ourselves in a healthy way, and seeing what really motivates us. There's fresh ideas, inspiring ideas that can be really paradigm shifting collectively right now. And this is because as well that Mercury, Chiron, and Venus together is happening at the same time as the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So we're back to today, and it's been building. Let's say it's been building for the last couple weeks. It's really strong for the next couple weeks. Let's just say April, May are the big Jupiter-Uranus conjunction months. And I want to start to break this down for you, and just reflect on, as we talk about this, that Aries house, you've probably been studying where that is in your chart, such an area of growth for you, of increase, of development, because the North Node is there. So whatever house that's been in, but it's also been where Mercury is retrograde. Mercury is going to be in that house for 2 months for you, right? He won't get out of there until middle of May. And so that's also been a huge area to put mental focus and learn about and communicate a lot about. And so we really want to emphasize that Aries house for you, the Libra house as well, a lot of karmic completion cycles there. But then we look at the Taurus house, where this Jupiter energy has been for the last almost year, about 11 months, as an area that's been expanding and growing. It's been an area that there's been some fortune or abundance or philosophical insights, maybe even spiritual growth for you. That Jupiter presence in that house has been really increasing our sense of faith in that area of our life. And then when we bring in Uranus, it brings a kind of eccentric, wild, sometimes uncertain and surprising energy. Now that house has also been where Uranus has been for about 5 years, so there's been a lot of changes in that area of your life. There's been a lot of surprises, unexpected events, radical reinvention. And when we combine Jupiter with Uranus, which happens every 14 years and is happening in that house for you, your Taurus house, now Jupiter is amplifying, growing, expanding these Uranian breakthroughs, epiphanies, wild revelations. So there's this huge like electric epiphanous energy with Jupiter and Uranus. Now, Uranus also, again, electrifies or awakens the Jupiter desire for growth and expansion and inspiration and faith. And that's why this can be a real breakthrough transit. It can bring incredible fortune. It can bring, just it's extreme, and it can be extremely volatile too. So Jupiter-Uranus does not like to follow any rules. It's very much about loving freedom, and something that we don't want to have any kind of boundary with that, or limitation, right? This is a very Promethean transit. Prometheus was the Titan who was stealing the fire from Zeus and the Olympians, and he was giving that fire to the humans, and this is sort of that symbol of technology. And this is one of the biggest technological breakthrough transits that we have. And of course, we all know that AI is going crazy all over the world. It's the greatest growth sector in terms of the stock market. There's been huge growth over the last year, especially in the tech stocks, or they call it the Magnificent Seven, which includes things like Meta and Google. But right now, Nvidia is one of the biggest stocks out there. The microchips, the supercomputers, cybersecurity, these areas of AI, the whole infrastructure around AI is just going to continue to explode, and it's the greatest edge for us. So in terms of stocks or the markets, this is an area that probably will continue to grow, even if other areas are shaken up a bit. Something to keep studying is what happens with the stock market around this transit. There may be a lot of sort of volatile ups and downs, but there's also, interestingly, this weekend, the same time as this Jupiter-Uranus transit, is the Bitcoin halving. And that's an event that happens every few years, where the reduction of the amount of Bitcoin happens on the planet. So that you cannot mine as much at that point. There's half the amount that becomes available. And as you might know with Bitcoin, if you studied it, there's only a limited or finite amount. And that's why those who have adopted Bitcoin, like myself and others, it's a deflationary currency. There's only a limited amount. And so that's why we think, that it will continue to grow in its value over every year that we're here on the planet. It is the largest growth currency or item that is out there in the world right now. And there's been a lot of news this year with a Bitcoin ETF. And these are things you can study up on, but finances is a big area here to look at with Jupiter-Uranus. There will be great growth happening for a lot of people, some loss potentially, but it tends to be more extreme with Jupiter and Uranus. So look for big breakthroughs, radical awareness and insights in the area where Jupiter and Uranus is in your chart. If you have a planet there somewhere, let's say between 15, 25, 26 of Taurus, obviously Taurus, of Scorpio, even the squares, there could be some real growth to you. You just have to watch not going too far. That would be kind of Leo and Aquarius, going beyond your means. That's the shadow of this energy with Jupiter. We get too confident, too exaggerated with our energy. We think things will just work out, This could also be like, I'm just going to leave that job and I don't care about the consequences, or I might burn bridges in name of the new, or the exciting, or the more fun, because this Jupiter-Uranus wants to have fun. It's very freedom loving, and doesn't like we said, doesn't like the rules or the regulations, and so the shadow of this is going a bit too far, right? And pushing beyond our means. It could be overspending as well when you think of Taurus. We also can think that this will bring up some things having to do with food and resources. And whenever we see Jupiter-Uranus, Uranus is a planet of revolution and protest. It's because it's about freedom. It's about authenticity, originality. So typically Jupiter-Uranus cycles have protest as part of their nature. We'll see that when we go back into the cycles. For instance, last time, 2010 and 11, of course, we had the Occupy Wall Street movement. We had things going on with the, what do they call it? The Arab Spring, right? And everything that was happening with Egypt, right? So we have these gatherings of groups of people who are, in solidarity gathering, and then at times it's quite radical. It could be violent, Uranus is not so feeling, right? And it is interesting when we look back that a lot of times there are these cultural flourishings or breakthroughs at the same time that there's actually kind of some intense warlike energies going on, because the energy is volatile and extreme. And it's interesting to watch how there is a symmetry between those in the history of this transit. So let's look back And I'm going to mention a few of the key ideas, and then we'll go to some moments in history or some famous individuals as well. So think about these ideas in terms of your own life and your own chart, especially around that house that Jupiter and Uranus are in, and around that planet that might be hit around the 15 to 25 degrees of the fixed signs. So expansive innovation, technological advances, freedom and liberation movements moving at a very accelerated rate, cultural flourishing, surges of optimism, right? Jupiter loves that, optimistic potential, right? And Uranus just electrifies that. Breakthroughs in understanding. It's like suddenly I get this, right? And Uranus is very metaphysical. So things like astrology and human design and numerology and, systems of self-awareness can really grow with this transit. Promotion of justice. Jupiter is a very moral planet, an ethical planet. Environmental breakthroughs. There tend to be things that happen in the collective in history around our relationship to the ecosystem, especially in the sign of Taurus. Expanding our world views, political reforms. There can be economic booms during this and prosperity. Artistic innovation and genius can really channel through. Radical shifts, increased individualism, exploration and adventures. Now let's kind of break it down more specifically. Let's just go backwards. The last time that this happened was the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction of 2010 and 2011. So go back to that time in your life. Think about that. Now, it wouldn't have been in the same sign, but you could think about that time and what was going on in your life. And of course, this is when, social media was really huge in order to have these political movements that were happening, like Occupy Wall Street. So Facebook and Twitter were really central to global communications. And interestingly, if you go back the previous cycle, 1997, the internet was exploding at that time and really transforming the ideas of individualism, how we could represent ourselves, which really got even bigger with Facebook and Twitter. And now we have, of course, TikTok and many other platforms. But there's going to be something that grows out of this cycle that will probably shift the paradigm, just like those softwares, those technologies did. Something that there may be a new platform or something involving the AI. I know that Meta or Facebook is integrating AI in a very deep way right now. I think it's called Llama. But whatever is happening around these months and as this year unfolds, especially when Jupiter goes into Gemini, huge technological breakthroughs and paradigm shifts that we might all be using a technology that becomes sort of ubiquitous, like these other tools. And it's being seeded now. Now, maybe that's ChatGPT or something like ChatGPT, but definitely with the AI, whatever happens, these months seems to be setting the stage for some big things. If we look back at what's happened technologically, even the early 80s had this theme. It was 83 when the conjunction took place. And personal computing, right? Like we had, there was actually the introduction of the internet protocol, the TCP IP came at that time, which is the support for the World Wide Web. Think about the early Macs that came out, 83, 84, kind of setting the stage for what would come. And if you go back to 69, the cycle before that, what was happening with music? Of course, this was Woodstock, right? And it was like a pinnacle, it was a zenith moment. It was a breakthrough moment. Not only did we have, of course, the LSD and the drugs and the marijuana and the festival vibes, it really kind of was seeded then in a big way, which of course now is all over the planet, right? Like music festivals of every kind happen, every week, from all year now, pretty much, but definitely from like say April, May through October around the world. But these things got really seeded back in '69, the Woodstock Festival, and you think about Jimi Hendrix, who was a big figure at that festival. And Jimi Hendrix was born under this Jupiter-Uranus type of energy, and he brought an entirely new way of playing guitar, really the electric guitar as an instrument. It had an entirely new ethos or like sound and structure and this just symphonic potential through the way Jimmy would play, and we saw him at Woodstock, right, and amongst others, right, so you see a lot of times people that were born under that cycle, then when that cycle comes back around, they sort of embody it in a way, and bring something really fresh. It'd be the way he would play. He would also play with his thumb at times, and very few guitarists could do that. I'm a guitarist, and I don't know how you do that very well, but Jimmy could do anything, right? And it's sort of right now there's something artistically for all of us where we can have a breakthrough, we can have an electric epiphanous moment, and it may literally be through electricity. This is a very electricity focused thing. You might see some crazy things happen with electricity. I know I just talked to a client who's going to move somewhere, and then she's not moving because she was going to be living on EMFs, and that came out, electromagnetic frequency, like right underneath where she was. We have to be careful with that right now. We are being bombarded with EMFs, and a lot of us don't know how to really deal with that very well, because we're just embedded, immersed in those fields. And so maybe there's new technologies to help us navigate the EMF frequencies. I think something about this could be around surveillance as well. I do want to recommend a couple books called Attention Span and Stolen Focus. Those aren't specifically about surveillance. There is a book called Privacy about that, but those are more about our attention and our attention around, social media and the attention switching and how that really, disrupts our ability to focus. And there's so many amazing studies in those books. Those books are very revolutionary and very poignant and prescient to our times. We're moving so fast that a lot of us aren't taking enough time to reflect on, should I maybe take a fast from Meta or Facebook or social media? What is it like to feel like I have to always be on there? This is something that we may be really needing to explore with this Jupiter-Uranus time, and especially coming into Taurus season where the earth is calling us to be more present with her beauty, with her abundance, and maybe take some time away. So think about how technology is shaping your life right now. Think about, if we go back again, the moon landing and the Cultural Revolution of 1969 with that, right? This was unprecedented, right? A peak of human achievement and technological progress. Again, we think maybe what's happening with AI right now may be an extension of that idea. But there's always sort of that technological peak, and something that radically shifts the collective, right? When we saw ourselves on the moon, like we were different as humanity and as a complete society. 55, we could go back and see Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and the rise of rock and roll. That was, really revolutionary at that time. And that was also the civil rights movement. And so social and cultural change, huge groups of people. And we're seeing protests go on with the wars going on right now, right? We're seeing likely in the US more and more protests with what's happening politically, or the lack of choices, right, with presidential nominees. And some of you may know that there's just been a new film released that is all about this energy. It's so interesting that this came out during the eclipse cycle, and it's called Civil War. And it's about a potential civil war in the US and how it would go down. And it's told through the lens of the journalist's eyes. And a kind of a siege on Washington, D.C. And It's by Alex Garland, who's a really well-respected filmmaker. He did Ex Machina, if you know about that film. He wrote the script for 28 Days Later. He also did Annihilation, and he's a really incredible filmmaker. But something that, you know, I know it's an intense film, but it's also very prescient with these transits, including Jupiter-Uranus in terms of like protest energy, which is a big part of that. Now, there was also the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction of 1941, and that was, you know, the rise of World War II, and of course the Nazi movement, and you know, a huge part of that was advancements in science and technology. You know, things like mind control, electronic communications, radar. You know, oh, there's that Benedict Cumberbatch movie that's something with the code. It's taking place during that time where he's intercepting the codes. That's a really good one if you want to tune into that. So yeah, again, war, technological development. Now I know that with Israel recently and Iran, there was, you know, some the drone bombs that were dropped, and you know, drone warfare is part of this potentially. So we're looking at that. Maybe more drone technology. I know the Amazon drones are coming in bigger, so this might be part of this as well. If you go back again, film and cultural innovations, we could look at 1927. I mean, this was when the Jazz Singer came out. And this was when the first synchronized movies synchronized with sound came to be. And this was, you know, revolutionary. The talkies, you know, but the jazz era got to be shown through film and sound, and this was a massive breakthrough. And if you study the history of film, I did some film courses back in the day. You know, the late 20s was a huge movement around this, really getting seated around the Jazz Singer coming out and what happened in 1927. There was a lot of artistic movements going on at that time, you know, Dada and Surrealism, both in writing and poetry and in novels. You know, Gatsby was around this time, but also, you know, in the arts, in the visual arts. So look for some of that coming back in, and then also the 1914, again, World War I, and you know, rapid advancements in technology and warfare, the use of airplanes and telecommunications in combat. But there was also huge innovations and peacetime applications of these. This was also just looking at my notes. I think when we had the Wright brothers and their international flight. So 1927, Charles Lindbergh's solo transatlantic flight, symbolizing the era's spirit of adventure and exploration, right? So that was a huge one. We also had 1955. You know, think about philosophy. Jupiter is a very philosophical planet. Uranus brings something really about the individual with that. And this was when existentialist philosophy was really coming out with Jean-Paul Sartre's and Albert Camus' work. You know, 55. This was big time for some of that work. You know, The Stranger. I don't know the exact date when that came out, but The Plague, Camus' works, Sartre's Nausea, and some of his works. So think about what's happening in terms of our collective philosophy, especially around AI and transhumanism. And then look at Citizen Kane. You know, this was in 1941. Again, a complete radical innovation. This is known as one of, if not the best film of all time. And it changed cinematic storytelling and techniques forever. Now, something you could explore is Netflix and what they're doing, likely at some point this year, where you're going to have a lot more choice in not only how the algorithm is understanding how you're viewing, but in actually engaging with the stories. Now, I know there's been some series that have been on where you've been able to kind of choose your own adventure in terms of like what comes next in the storyline. That ability is going to come more and more and more through storytelling. So I think that it's really going to become more individualistic, which is very Uranian, in terms of how we take in our media, meaning we're going to be able to choose more like potential storylines and plot points. And, you know, that's kind of happening already, right? If you think of the algorithms, whether it's on YouTube or Netflix or any advertising now, it's reading us so deeply that we're going down these predetermined pathways. And we have to, again, another great, I think it's called documentary. It's not Source Code, it's Coded Bias, if you can watch that, which is really a lot about algorithms. We need to be sensitive to, how technology or the media or advertising and the big companies are choosing for us what we're going to be seeing or watching versus us choosing that ourselves. And but think about and look into Netflix and what they're doing with the sort of choose your own adventure storytelling. That I think is part of what might be happening with this Jupiter-Uranus if we look back at previous cycles. And let's see if there's anything else that's jumping out. I think that's a good place to stop in terms of, we've talked about a lot of, previous cycles and what can happen there. So this is massive energy. It's life-changing for many of us. It's shifting the the paradigm collectively. And sometimes, we might not see the effects of this like this weekend, right? But it's a seed planting. It's the beginning of a 14-year cycle. And so, wherever this is landing, 3 years from now in your life, there'll be themes that are like, in a square to that, which is like a growth edge. And 6 years, 7 years from now, you'll see the opposition, and maybe something comes to fruition during that time related to what was happening right now. It's just like whatever happened in 2010, 11, about, 2018, there was something around that Jupiter-Uranus seed that was coming to fruition. So you can look back and think about it this way in your own life. Now, this is also very important that, this is happening over the next few weeks, and then just coming out of this weekend on the 23rd, 24th, depending on where you are. But you could see right here, this is in California. Looks like, yeah, it's going to be late on if we go the 23rd, I'll back this up a little bit. So in the evening, West Coast time, you're going to see the moon sun opposition, which is going to be our full moon in Scorpio. It's at 4 degrees. And what's really important about this is that you could see a square to Pluto. 2 degrees. Now that's sort of a double Pluto or double Scorpio moon, because of course Pluto has affinity with Scorpio. And so we're looking at a moon that is going to really emphasize the shadow work. I like to call it shadow play with my journal, Zodiac shadow play. See if you can see it there. Oh, I don't know if it's coming out, but there you go. Zodiac shadow play. It's on Amazon, but it's about, for us at this time, being willing to look at some of those uncomfortable places in our life. Pluto, in a square to this moon, invites us to excavate into the unconscious. So there's probably something that's going to come up where we have held on to something. We resisted some kind of change. We are still looking at a way that we might manipulate ourselves or others. We don't want to deal with some kind of addiction that we might have, and we all have addictions. Even spirituality, spiritual materialism, or bypassing can be an addiction, right? This is a full moon that's asking us to engage directly with whatever is coming us, to confront it directly. Why am I acting this way? What behavior is causing this? What can I do to source that out? So this is why it's a beautiful moon to do ceremonial work, shamanic work, maybe medicine work, breath work could be really, really powerful with this. It's a very cathartic moon. This is not like Tuesday, late on the day, Tuesday evening. something is going to be really up for each one of us. So I want to invite you, you might want to listen to some goth music or something like Tool or some, metal, something to move the energy through. You could do a breathwork session. You want to investigate, what is still holding on, and any kind of armor inside of you, any kind of stuck energy or resistance. Pluto is the planet of evolution. And because we're coming out of the eclipse cycle, because, we got, these planets very close to the eclipse degree still, everything we talked about with Mercury, Chiron, Venus, the North Node, the messages that are coming from the unconscious right now. Now, it might not be the unconscious, it might be that you source out Pluto figures, people that are astrologers or working with systems like human design or these tools. Maybe, again, a great time to do something like hypnotherapy or past life regression work, right? I do some work called deep memory process, which is a regression modality, also connected with evolutionary astrology, my background. So that work could be really good. You're looking at what themes do I keep repeating in my life? Freud talked about repetition compulsion, that we repeat something in our outer world that is something within our soul until compulsively until it becomes super conscious and we have to deal with it. And Jung said something similar, right? Like that, I won't quote it exact, but whatever parts of us remain unconscious, right? Like they will come out, they will leak out in this more kind of darker way, right? Like the unconscious can't hide itself, right? And so we have to make the unconscious conscious, right? We have to bring to light what has been in the shadows. And this is the time, this full moon in Scorpio, squared by Pluto, where we are going to be really needing to do that work. And Pluto's about to go retrograde at this degree of 2 Aquarius. So this is a really sensitive position of the chart. People that have planets at the first couple degrees of Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio, really hit by this eclipse, really hit by the Pluto retrograde coming in. That's going to be, right around the corner at the end of the month here, beginning of May. And so look at those parts of your chart needing to do this transformative death, rebirth, resurrection, Pluto's regeneration, resurrection, rebirth, and the process of going within to discover actually your power on the other side of that. So I want to give you a couple prompts from the Zodiac Shadow Play book. And I also want to give you a couple names and chants that you can do with this full moon. Pluto's very Shiva-like. Shiva, one of the names of Shiva was the destroyer. In the Trinity of gods in the Hindu tradition. And so you can chant Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, especially to any of those shadow energies that you want to transform or transmute. This is a very alchemical cycle. And so, however you can work with alchemy in your life, think of the food that you're eating as an alchemical process, what you're drinking as an alchemical process, the information you're taking in as an alchemical process. This is a vibratory shift coming in, and we can do that through mantra, right? This is called, japa mantra, or, japa yoga is like the practice of working with mantra. And so Om Namah Shivaya. Now you can also work with some of the 99 beautiful names of Allah, which has been a deep part of my path, in the Sufi tradition. And if you want to work with the idea of Pluto as purging or purification, right? Maybe if you're going to do some fasting or some cleansing, which is often recommended with this kind of Scorpio energy or Pluto energy, you could work with Al-Qudus, which means the pure one, the holy one. It's a great name of Allah to work with for purifying oneself. Ya Qudus. You could say Ya is like calling on, or Al, which is always referencing a name of God, of Allah. Now, Pluto is also wealth. And the name means wealth. So this might be a transit where we're able to access more wealth, actually. And then what, how are we doing that, right? Is it in alignment with us? That's a question to ask during this time. And wealth, the giver of wealth, um, the idea of sort of abundance, or the one who is all rich, right? Who has all wealth, who is able to give, everything to us. This in the tradition is called Gani, Gani. So this is again one of the names of Allah, and you can chant with this. Here, I'll pull it back up here. It is here's the keywords for he who is completely satisfied, he who is free from any wants, he who is freed from any dependence, he upon whose wealth and riches all others depend. So the self-sufficient one, this is Allah al-Ghani. Now, al-Ghani, as he gives to us, as the one who is self-sufficient or has everything gives to us, then he is al-Muni, Mughni, al-Muni, the enricher. So what do we need to be enriched? In what ways do we need to be enriched in our life? How can we tap into our intrinsic self-sufficiency with this cycle? Now also something wants to be revealed. And so one of the names of Allah is Al-Batin, which is the hidden one. And this is what can be the revealer of the unconscious parts of ourselves, the shadow parts. Then we become empowered. And the all-powerful one is Al-Malik, which is also the sovereign one. Or Al-Qawi is another name for empowerment. So now if we're looking at some of the prompts from the shadow play, one of the ones I wanted to give to you was thinking about control. And, there's a quote in here from Lao Tzu, the Taoist master of the Tao Te Ching. He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. So again, now there's another quote here that we might sit with from one of the great Stoic masters, Epictetus. The more you seek to control external events, the less control you will have over your own life. And as we know, coming out of the eclipses change the course of many of our lives. Different soul contracts come in, different characters in our life, right? We play different roles. We might have to move. We might have a new job, might have a new relationship. We might end one. And it's so important as we approach this Pluto Scorpio moon that we let go of trying to control everything and realize that there's very little external events that we can control. But the Stoics teach us to focus on the things that we can control and in building virtue around our relationships to that. For instance, what I eat and how I eat every day. Am I just shoveling it in my mouth, or am I really in like a prayerful way with it, right? How I speak to a friend or a stranger or my beloved or my child, right? These are things I can control. So we're looking at that. And speaking of that, intimacy and vulnerability is going to come up very big time with this, especially in the week after as Venus comes to square Pluto. And I'll just give you the date of that because you do want to know about that one. That's going to come in right here at the end of the month. Well, beginning, last days of April, you're going to see Venus coming to square Pluto as she moves into Taurus. And so intimacy, vulnerability, shadow play in our relationships. So when I'm faced with intimacy or vulnerability, what automatic thoughts or feelings arise? Do I hide? Do I try to overwhelm someone? What comes up for me in intimate spaces? And how do these thoughts or feelings influence my behaviors and my emotional reactions? Is there a kind of emotion that I get stuck around or I get stuck with? Yeah. Meaning I identify more with it. And so on that there's, can I identify any cognitive distortions or negative thought patterns that emerge during times of crisis, intensity, or upheaval? What kind of thought loop do I get into? These are really good sort of Pluto Scorpio questions to ask during this moon. And then I'm going to give you a blessing or an affirmation you can work with. And the book has some blessings. It has some, affirmations. It has some quotes, all related to Scorpio. Guide me away from the shadows of jealousy and vengeance, and towards the light of alchemical love and forgiveness for the only sin, which is the thought of separation. Forgiveness for the only sin, which is the thought of separation. So when we are faced with this, control issue or power struggle that might arise, that's always coming from a sense of feeling separate. And as A Course in Miracles teaches, A Course in Miracles is such a powerful tool for accessing the unconscious. This becomes the thing that we have to pay attention to. What thoughts are keeping me in the idea of separation? And then I have to offer those to the Great Spirit, to God, to Allah, to Shiva, right? To Kali. Kali is the great goddess of Pluto and Scorpio as well. So if you want to work with Kali and her seed syllable, which is Cream, you can work with her. So there's many tools, right? And let's just now briefly look at where that full moon is going to be landing, in Scorpio for the different rising signs. So this is just going to be a little 1 minute, 2 minute interpretation of this. Let's come back here to the day when this is happening. Again, it's on the 23rd or 24th if you're in Europe, likely. So here's let's go here, late afternoon, and you're going to see. So let me move through. Let's start with Aries rising. Okay, so Aries rising, that means, of course, the moon will be, it's going to be right in your, you don't see it right here, but it's going to be in your 8th house. And so it's all the same Scorpio themes, right? Because always the themes for Aries are Aries risings. And you could read your sun sign as well, but it's most accurate to look at our rising signs in terms of the timings. The sun sign will have a lot to do with our life force and energy, and the moon sign will have to do with our emotions. So if you have a moon in Scorpio, think about this as being, obviously your moon. It's a very strong one. But for Aries risings, the 8th house, doing the shadow work, looking at also how you're invested with others, shared resources, that can mean the space that you share, living space. It can mean your partner's resources. This is the house of sexuality as well, esoteric studies, the occult, the unconscious, mortality. These are themes to be exploring deeply during this full moon for you, Aries rising. Now with Taurus rising, this is going to be all about relationships. Again, the moon will be right here in the 7th house. And so this is going to bring up all of course, if you're in a partnership, any collaborations you're in, could be colleague relationships. Is there equal give and receive? Are the relationships balanced? Are my resources, my partner's resources? Some of those themes may come up. Are things enduring and stable? Taurus rising likes that, right? Is something shaking the foundations? So think about, the solidity of the relationship and relationships that you're in your life and being balanced in them. Now, with Gemini rising, this is bringing up potential health issues or daily practice. So that could be your devotional practice. That could be just a regular regime, like I'm getting up at the same time of the day, I'm doing maybe some yoga or breath work or meditation or whatever the healthy practices you're doing in the morning or not, right? Trying to get into a regular flow. This also may just emphasize work, doing more work, or having more tasks to take care of, like the little things, the minutia. Um, and it's not so glorious, but it's also about taking care of your health. So wherever there hasn't been any healthy practices, sometimes Gemini can be in too many scattered and fragmented places. So we want to kind of focus or cohere the energy and get more into a regular daily flow that feels really healthy for us. If you have pets, there might be some issues going on with your pets to take care of. Yeah, make a list of things every day that have to be worked on, or part of your spiritual practice, and just committing to that with this full moon. Now, for Cancer risings, this is going to be in your fifth house, and this should be a pretty, a pretty fulfilling energy this month in terms of maybe something to do with your creativity or your self-expression, right? It's really interesting for Cancer risings because you have a lot of energy, from Aries, all the Aries transits in your career house too. So there's been a lot of growth there for you, right? Whereas if you come back to Gemini's had all that Aries energy in, their 11th house of community and tribe, of the people that have the same goals and causes as you, right? Still a lot of career energy too. But for Cancers, sorry, let's go forward here. We're looking at, maybe the children in your life are playing a significant role during this time, or maybe they're having some kind of, maybe you're taking them through some shadow work type of processes. Maybe it's just emphasizing more time you need to spend with them, or your inner child, your own self-expression, your creative energies. So, a lot to focus on here for Cancer risings in terms of your ability to play, but also to be directing a lot of energy towards work. Kind of interesting how those might be lit up at this time for you. Now, Leo risings, that means that full moon is going to be right there in your area of the home. So my question is, again, with Pluto in the area of partnership, and that the sun is now coming to your career point, is this bringing up, there's some kind of peak moment or tension between career, home, relationships, and your own, creative energy, your own leadership, right? But probably something with the family of origin or your actual home space is really being emphasized right now. Are you working from your home? Is there challenge from a partner in the home space? Or is there empowerment through partnership, right? And are there people that you're collaborating with that you might have some challenges with? When we get the four angles involved, right? This is quite intense, and either something doesn't want to budge inside of you, or it needs to be really committed to and stabilized. And it has to do, again, with career, the relationship partner, and the home space. So really study those areas, Leo rising. Now, Virgos, we're having, the third house where the full moon is landing. And this is the area that has to do with communication and ideas and information. So this should really be emphasizing, maybe you're learning or going through some trainings right now that are really significant. Or you need to be studying, reading a lot. Maybe you need to write and synthesize some ideas. Jupiter-Uranus is having some breakthroughs for you in terms of maybe some travel, some foreign cultures that are up for you. Could be higher education, could be a whole new philosophical or spiritual energy that's growing for you, as well as some very deep esoteric studies, and how you're doing shadow work with the eighth house, all that Aries energy coming up, right? So everything we've been talking about today, look at the third house of ideas and communication, look at the ninth house, growing and getting inspired, with this Jupiter-Uranus energy, the sun coming here. There's huge amount of spiritual growth with this cycle for you. And what you're learning should probably have to do with some kind of philosophy or meaning and truth that's coming into your life. Or maybe you're thinking about travel around the world or a pilgrimage. If you are, locational astrology, I'd love to support you with that, because you can strategize where and when to go to these locations that may be calling you. Again, anytime the third or ninth house are emphasized, we are definitely thinking about travels. And so let's move forward and look at Libra risings. This is going to be the second house, right? And so we're going to look at my resources, my self-confidence, my values, what's important to me. And, there's some themes going on here around my own resources and then my partner's resources. What's so interesting, right, is Jupiter's been in the area of other people's resources for the whole last year. You may have benefited from loans or another person or a partner's resources, or even an affiliation. I would say to keep focusing on affiliate connections, if you're in business, and use that Jupiter-Uranus energy that way. It could be great to take out an investment or a loan. Maybe think about some stocks, increase your assets, get into tech stocks, perhaps, cybersecurity, all those things we were talking about, AI. And then there's also some, there's been a lot of emphasis around relationship for you, Libra rising, obviously, right? The eclipse is in the area of the self and partnership. So I would imagine there's been some shifts there, and we're now trying to consolidate some things, get more solid in our relationship, get more clarity here, and make sure that we know, that we're in a team, right? There should be a lot of growth though happening for you around partnership, and a sense of some real collaborations that are powerful and positive for you at this time. Some healing relationships, really. Now, of course, if you're Scorpio rising, this is happening in your first house, and there's a lot of energy around how you're presenting yourself, the kind of influence and impact you're having in the world, which should be really increasing right now, intensifying. Likely there could be, again, because these are the angles, there could be some tension that might arise from, career or from home space. Pluto coming into the home space for the next 20 years. This is quite intense for Scorpio risings, but there may be some big shift around that happening now. Maybe are you moving in with a partner? Is a partner leaving the house? Is there something going on with the home that's affecting how you're presenting yourself or identifying? Now, I would think with Jupiter in your seventh house, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction there should be a real radical breakthrough around relationships. Maybe you're traveling with a partner. Maybe there's a new relationship coming into your life. Something very inspiring. Maybe there's a teacher or a partner who's like a teacher. You might get attracted to a teacher in your life. But breakthroughs and maybe some accelerated energy around relationship for you as well with this full moon. So be aware of that, but also be aware of not pushing your health too hard and getting into some healthy regimens as well, with so much of that eclipse energy in your sixth house. Sagittarius, this is going to emphasize the 12th house, which might suggest that this moon would require more internal work at this time. Maybe you're developing some of your psychic gifts, maybe more meditation. Maybe you start to think again, also this is a house of foreign travel. It's more abroad. Sagittarius loves to travel, right? Be sensitive to that, Jupiter-Uranus in the sixth house could bring sudden, maybe too much work, too many things to take care of. It's good, usually it's beneficial, but it might overwhelm us. So be careful to not kind of short circuit yourself by trying to do too much every day, Sagittarius, right? Overwhelming yourself. But for you, Sag rising, you're ruled by Jupiter. And I think this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is hugely expansive. And you might be on the leading edge of something right now, innovating something, a new technology, maybe an investment strategy. Again, it could be some kind of travel and business related travel. Um, but make sure to take care of your spirit during this time and not overwhelm yourself. It's been a very creative cycle the last couple months, this whole year with the eclipses in your fifth house. This could also be something around children that's really growing too. So a lot of expansive energy for you, but also maybe taking some time to retreat, 12th house, and then all of these visions can come through for the great visionary of the Centaur Sagittarius. Capricorn, really this full moon is emphasizing the communities, the friendships that you have in your life and the bigger goals that you have. And you really want to be clarifying those at this time and putting that out to the world. It's a very creative time for you, and it's an important time with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction to look at, you know, how am I expressing myself? Am I having fun? Am I having more, play in my life? Do I have the people in my life to play with, right? Do I have the people that I can share my message and, my Capricorn rising ability to be ambitious and achievement oriented and a leader? Yeah, recognizing that it's very significant that you are, able to express yourself maybe in new ways that you haven't before. Sometimes Capricorn could be very, constrained in how it communicates, Capricorn rising, Capricorn suns and moons. And so this time can be more creative, more self-expressive, and making sure to find the people you can do that with, and some healing and some new energies in the home space really coming up. Maybe you've had to shift homes, but it seems like it's growth oriented for you, Capricorn. Now, Aquarius, again, this is the fixed angles. And so the full moon is in your area of career, and that's really, really powerful. This is bringing stuff up that maybe you intended 6 months before, some intentions around how you want it to grow, influence, maybe, your work as bringing people together, alliances, affiliations, some visionary work, which is always important for Aquarius energies. Pluto's now in your first house. So you are really coming into your power, but you might have power struggles, as that happens, maybe involving, colleagues, maybe involving a partner or your family of origin. Again, it could also bring up issues around the home, but I like that the Jupiter-Uranus transit is happening in the area of your home. If you have to move, it's definitely positive. It's definitely bringing more abundance to your life. Maybe you're moving to a bigger space, maybe a communal space, which can be really great for Aquarius risings, where you can influence your community. So a big career focus and community and home focus for you, Aquarius. So let's look at finally Pisces, and we're looking at the moon landing in your ninth house, which again, this could bring up travel abroad for you. It could bring up higher education. It could bring up more philosophy and religious studies, bringing more meaning into your life. All of those may be combined, like a spiritual pilgrimage somewhere abroad. Again, astrolocality, a great tool for you Pisces rising is if you're thinking of moving or traveling for a spiritual purpose. Lots of ideas flowing. It can be a very mentally insightful, like you're downloading. I would definitely be writing and getting inspired with, your visions right now, Jupiter, Uranus in your third house of ideas and information. Think about how some energies are growing in terms of how you can call in resources. Mercury retrograde in your second house, the eclipse in your second house. Increase your sense of self-worth and values, and be a pure channel as you are, Pisces, right? And be guided by spirit, be intuitive, right? There's a lot of pressure on you right now, Saturn in your sign. And so being systematic with what you're doing is going to be really important, being structured, planning for the long term, which is not Pisces' strength a lot of the time, but you'll really benefit from that during this cycle. So Wow, there's so much to explore. We've gone through all the signs. I hope this has been revealing for everyone in terms of your rising sun or moon signs. There's so much that we've talked about in this journey today, from the retrograde Mercury, the Chiron, the Venus, the North Node in Aries, that house being significant. The Taurus house, right? Jupiter-Uranus, the sun coming there now, but Jupiter-Uranus expanding, bringing these electric epiphanies and awakenings for you. And then the Scorpio house, right? And the Scorpio planets that you might have getting hit by this full moon. Pluto, transformation, change, in terms of a cathartic breakthrough that can take place. So this is going to be a real powerhouse. I'm going to come back on screen here. Powerhouse full moon coming in this weekend ahead is huge for all of us. And so whoever you're around, allowing yourself to do the deep Chiron and then Pluto, Scorpio kind of shadow work, process the unconscious, face yourself, have some fun with it, play with the breakthroughs around, facing your shadows, your demons, slaying them. Mars rules the eclipse. Mars is in going to be with Neptune, and that can be a kind of spiritual crusade we go on, right? And it's about aligning ourselves with our source, and so making sure that we stay in our practices and our devotions during this moon. Again, if you're interested in locational astrology, business with astrology or design, and some family or relationship work, those are my focuses with my practice. The Zodiac Shadow Play Journal, here it is. It's on Amazon. You can find it, VerDarLuz. It's a great tool if you want to do some prompts and journaling related to the shadow and specifically to Scorpio. It's been great to serve you all today, and excited for what is unfolding in the weeks and months ahead. It's going to be a powerful summer. So take care. Stay tuned for Jupiter and Gemini work that's coming in at the end of May. We'll see you soon.